Hi, my name is R2G2. I guess that's my name now. I'm not really sure anymore. This week I reached 10k subscribers, which is really cool, and I wanted to give an in-person thank you to all of the people who have watched the videos and liked them enough to say nice things about them and about me in various places online, and to share them with other people, and to really just make sure that everyone could benefit as much as possible from those small videos that I make. If you did any of those things at any point in the past, thank you so much, because I think it's really cool, and I just wanted to give an in-person thank you, face to face. I know I don't show my face very often because I'm not very comfortable doing it, but I know that people kind of want to see it, so I thought I'd just give a thank you by doing that. I'm going to go back to my usual style in just a second, where I'm just going to answer the Q&A questions from behind the screen, and I'll see you on the other side when I do. So as you can see, 10,167 is the number. In case I seemed and looked very tired in that little intro, it's because I am. You can see it's Friday night, 7:30. It's been an extremely long week, and it has no signs of ending anytime soon. So I am very tired, but I'm going to get through this because I promised to. Um, Q&A. This is the post that I made. I asked for questions, and I got a lot of them, way more than I thought I would. So we're going to have to go through them. I'm going to do them oldest to newest, just to reward those who answered the soonest. So we'll go way back to the start, and I'll try and read out everyone's name who asked questions. So the proof is trivial has asked me most overrated and underrated chapters from A-level maths. So I don't know how to answer the overrated one because I don't know what other people really like. So I kind of couldn't think of anything that fit that category. Underrated, I can think of a few, but the one that I'm going to shout out is year two numerical methods, which I think loads of people hate. Probably partly because it's just taught a lot of the time very procedurally. You just get out a calculator and press equals a bunch of times and solve some very boring problems. But I think if you actually get into the nitty gritty of what the numerical methods are trying to do, talking about cobweb diagrams, talking about Newton Raphson and its methodology, and you know breaking it and making cycles and things like that, I think it has some really good stuff underneath that can be explored and is well worth exploring. So I'm going to go with that as the underrated chapter. Krish Sidha 9291 asks, "What's the first step to revising for Tamura?" Now, someone else has asked me actually a couple of months ago to make a whole video talking about Oxbridge applications in full, and I think that would be a good idea to talk about in there. It's going to take me a long time to answer that question, and it is something that I have been interested in making a video in anyway. So I think I'm just going to leave it to then. So apologies, but I do promise to make that video, and that question will be answered in a lot of detail, hopefully. Oliver M1255 asked me, "Do you think Tamura fairly judges who should go to Cambridge, Imperial, or whatever?" Um, I feel like you want me to say no. Unfortunately, I'm going to answer with a pretty firm yes. Part of the reason I talk about Tamura a lot is not only because I think it's a really fun exam with lots of good problems in it, but I do think they've written it very well, and I do think um, the scores show who the most able are and who the most practiced are and who the most prepared are. I think it does a really good job. It doesn't do a perfect job by any means, and that's why there's an interview to come afterwards and things like that. But I do think it does a really good job, and maybe that's not the answer that lots of people want to hear right now. Um, but I think it's true. Otherwise, if I didn't, I wouldn't spend so much time talking about it. I don't think. Um, Aaron-2689 says, "What motivated you to make a YouTube channel and help students?" So this is going to have to be quite a long answer because there's a lot going on here. I kind of made this channel by mistake, or not by mistake, but by accident. I never intended for this to come about from the start. The year was 2020, and of course we were all locked down because of COVID. And I was in my first year teaching at the time, and my school had a policy which was you weren't to give live lessons. Because of course if a family of maybe three children only had one device that they could attend live lessons on, that means the other two children couldn't attend their lessons. So the school's policy, I think quite sensibly, was just to put all of your work online as early as you could each day. All of the slides, all of the resources, the questions, the videos, put them all online in the morning, and then just be on hand at your email address to answer any questions the kids had throughout the day. Just let them learn whenever they want. And I liked that as a strategy, and I think it worked quite well for us, to be honest. The frustrating thing for me, though, was that sure, I would be teaching stuff, and sometimes I would find good YouTube videos to give to my classes, but more and more often, I just couldn't find things that I wanted. For a couple of reasons, a few really, but I'll just name two to be brief. The first reason that I couldn't find them was because I'm very fussy as a math teacher. I want things to be taught in exactly the right way for whichever class you're teaching. And often the YouTube videos would demonstrate the wrong method for a certain thing, and I couldn't find the exact right method that I wanted, or even if I found the correct method, they didn't then select good enough examples to show off why the method was so good. And so I became increasingly frustrated with videos that just weren't up to the standard that I wanted them to be, my the very high standard that I wanted them to be. They were good videos. I'm very fussy and picky. And the other thing was, and kids that I teach in real life will know this, but sometimes I like to deep dive and just go really hard into some really niche area of maths and practice some really tiny skill that I just want them to really get. There's just this tiny idea that I really want them to get. We'll just hammer it in, we'll practice it. And of course, if this idea is not something that's ever tested or ever gone through, how am I supposed to find a video on that? Like, I'm not going to. And so I got frustrated that I could no longer do those kind of lessons where I was doing something a bit offbeat, something a bit weird, and but also very good in my opinion mathematically. And so it just got to the point where I was like, well, okay, I'll just do it myself. And for a long time, I just made videos myself for the classes that I was teaching in real life. I never made a video for anyone else, just the classes I was teaching in real life. Um, and then around the same time, there were two girls in the sixth form who wanted to take Tamura. I think they were taking it in 2021, and so in 2020 we started preparing them for it. The school asked me, can you help these people with Tamura? And I said, yeah, of course I can. I had no idea at the time what Tamura was, but I said that I could. And I looked through the papers and they seemed really interesting. And again, because we were still kind of in lockdown at the time, I decided to just make videos going through the entire past papers that were there and send them to them and just say, you just watch this. I think I've explained it okay. And then November of 2021 came along, and I was just looking at my YouTube statistics, which were always just completely dead. Nothing was ever going on, right? Because a handful of kids from my class would occasionally watch a video that I put up. But we got to November of 2021, or October, and I was getting hundreds of views a day. Like, I was passing the three-figure mark. And that was incredible to me. And it made me realize that actually people outside of the people that I teach in real life will watch my videos if I made something that was useful to them. And they seem to quite like them. And around the same time, I also made a series of videos on the STEP support program. And an absolutely lovely man called Raj emailed me. At the time, I didn't have a public email address. So Raj did some exceptional detective work to try and track me down and find me. And he sent me an email saying, "Oh, your videos are fantastic. I've learned so much. You've done such a good job. I really hope you make more. Um, and please keep doing what you're doing." And I just realized that I could have an impact on people outside of my real life sphere, outside of the people that I taught in real life. Um, and so I just ran with it. Started making UKMT videos. Started making more step videos, and I also made videos on all the things that I taught in lesson time to help me practice as a math teacher. Like, I found that making a video, let's say on circle theorems, I made like a 10-part video series on circle theorems, um, just to help me prepare for teaching that for the first time in a classroom. Like, teaching my laptop in front of me helped me to rehearse what I was going to say in front of a class. And so I found that was a really nice way of preparing myself and being better. Um, and then, of course, the last thing that happened, so the channel just kind of grew. It. I never intended for it to be like this, like I said, but it just kind of ended up being that way. The last thing I would say about this, though, as well, is that my final motivation for doing this is that it's going to help me massively in the future to dictate the terms of my employment. In the sense that, and I know lots of people are going to say, "Well, you're a maths teacher; you can work wherever you want," and that's probably vaguely true. But if you're a maths teacher who has a YouTube channel of a decent amount of clout that makes very niche videos on a very advanced area of school level maths, that does give you, I think, or hopefully give me quite a lot of clout in terms of where I want to work, and in, increases my um, likelihood of being given a job anywhere that I want to work, because it's likely if I apply to a good school, the kind of school that I'd like to work in, someone in that department has probably heard of me, and they'll be like, "Well, we just need to hire that guy straight away." And so, yeah, that's the final motivation that keeps me going and really makes me want to do more of this. And it's enjoyable. I just like doing it. So yeah, hopefully I answered that question in enough detail. I know I rambled on a bit there. That's not a question. Excellent. Dan to Mama's Bait 645. Interesting name. Oxford map format change. I assume you're asking me my opinion on the Oxford map format change. My opinion is that I don't really have one. It's a fantastic spec written by a fantastic man who writes fantastic questions, Dr. James Monroe, and a small tweak in the format is not going to change any of that. So, although we haven't seen any question papers yet on it, I'm assuming that it's going to be absolutely fine, and I'll just leave it there. GreyX Plays has asked about the CSAT, which I'm obviously not going to talk about because I have no knowledge of it. I do not want to answer questions for which I don't have any knowledge. But he has also asked best topics that could have been in the A-level maths spec. I'm going to go maybe for a controversial one that most people won't like me to say, but I'm going to go with number theory. Number theory is the quintessential marquee field in mathematics, and it should be in A-level mathematics. It shouldn't be hidden away in A-level further maths. It should just be in A-level maths, and I'll just say that one. Barry1269 asked me, in your opinion, best universities, without knowing your circumstances, who you are, where you live, what you want to do, what you want to study, that question is absolutely impossible to answer. And even if I did know all those things, I am not an expert in universities. So I wouldn't be comfortable answering the question anyway. So apologies for that. But anything that I say is not substantiated, so I'm not going to say it. Amir Gulu Bailey asked me, what is your what's your favorite millennium problem, unsolved conjecture, and which do you think will be most likely to be solved soonest? I'm going to disappoint you, Amir, I think. Unfortunately, I'm going to disappoint you because I'm going to have to admit, and I think a few people know this about me, but lots probably don't. I'm going to have to admit that I don't have any interest at all, almost any interest at all in maths. I would go so far as to say that I don't even particularly like maths overall. And I know that's people are going to be scratching their heads on that. Um, I like the problem solving aspect of it. I like doing UKMT papers and Tamura papers because they challenge me and because I like working on them. I like the feeling of getting them right, like lots of people do. But I have no intrinsic interest in mathematics or what's going on in mathematics. I just don't. I think I'll talk about this more later on in the video, but that's partly what made my maths degree so difficult was because I had no interest in the subject as a subject. I just like solving problems. To answer the question that everyone is now asking, the reason that I teach maths for a living is because my passion is in education. Um, I I care deeply about education and about young people's futures, and maths is just the thing that I'm very good at, and so it's the logical thing to be teaching. Um, so that's why I do it. And so to answer your question, and also I don't feel too bad about admitting that I don't have any massive interest or like of mathematics, because despite that, I do seem to be able to instill a very solid and very real interest in mathematics in my students. And I'll take that. Like, I'll take the fact that it doesn't matter what I feel about it. I seem to be good enough at hiding that. Um, and good enough at explaining all the things in maths such that I can pass it on to students without even having that interest myself. And so I think that's one of the things that I do well. And so I don't feel bad about not actually being interested in it myself. To answer your question, therefore, I can only name two of the Millennium problems because, like I said, I don't really have any interest in them. Um, and so, yeah, and I mean, which do you think will be the solved the soonest? You're asking a question way above my pay grade there. Go ask Terence Tao, please. I certainly can't answer that question. So we'll move on. Thank you so much for your help with that's not a question. Any plans on making videos about topics in further maths, including FP1? Maybe. There's lots of really cool things in FP1 that I might talk about. I just don't know. I don't really have a plan for the things that I'm going to make in the future. I just kind of make want to at the time. So maybe you'll see those, maybe you won't. I can't promise anything there. That's not a question. I've already answered this control 3401, and I said the answer was yes. I think it is a good um, litmus test. I think it works really well. I wouldn't talk about it so much if I didn't. I think the one thing about it that um, isn't well, the one thing about it that I would say isn't so good, but is also good at the same time. The fact that there's so much like mathematical logic in it, right? You don't learn mathematical logic at school, and yet it asks you a lot of it. And I think that's actually really good. That their principle, I think, behind doing that is that it tests who is going to actually prepare themselves enough, get out there and learn that material on their own. And I think that's a worthwhile thing for them to be testing, who actually has the moxie to go out and learn that. Of course, the natural disadvantage of doing that is that people who are in private schools who have dedicated support. Private schools will hire someone not just to teach maths, but to specifically teach for university entrance because it's worth it to the private school to say, we got this many people into Oxford or Cambridge this year. And so if you're not at a private school, you're at a significant disadvantage because those schools do not hire someone full time to teach you that kind of thing. And so this is why, again, another reason that motivates me to make videos like this is that it evens the playing field, right? And I think as long as I can help even the playing field on it, then yes, Tamura is a very good admissions test. As long as there's enough free material out there for everyone to study it equally or close to equally, then yeah, I think it's a great test. And I know that's hard for lots of people to hear right now because maybe they think that they didn't do very well but still deserve to be in the university. Um, Sorry, I like that's my answer. And yeah, is this a question? No, it's not good. Maths accounts dash FB5KB though asked me what my interests or thoughts about my career when I was younger and how did it change over time. Okay, this question has 9 likes, which means I'm going to have to answer it. Um, it's a long answer, so apologies. I didn't have any thoughts or interests in my future career when I was younger. I had no idea what I wanted to be at all. I knew and I knew I was very good at maths. I was always very good at maths. I was always very talented at maths. And so what people told me was, well, that's great because you can do a maths degree. And if you do a maths degree, you can do anything you want. People just want to hire maths degree people. They just want to hire you because you're super smart and everyone will hire you. So you can just figure it out when you're at university and you'll get something, you'll figure something out and it'll be fine. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen. When I was at university, like I said, I don't have any interest in maths, really. So I found university very hard because I was studying full time a subject that I really had almost no interest in. Like, I really wish I had done some kind of dual maths and education degree. That would have, I think, been much better for me. Um, Maybe because of those things, I also started suffering fairly badly from depression and anxiety. Um, on medication, I still have effects all these years later. I think most people who suffer from it in the past probably never truly live it down. I think everyone has to carry it with them. Maybe some people get over it completely, but I certainly haven't. Um, and yeah, that made it really hard for me. When your plan is, well, just wing it, do whatever you want, leave university, and people want to hire you. Well, if you don't think you're worth anyone hiring you to do anything, that's not a good outlook. That's not going to work very well. And so, yeah, I didn't know what to do with myself. I finished university. I got a 2-1 somehow, um, and uh, and yeah, I didn't know what to do. So I started volunteering in a little sort of soup kitchen. This story is going somewhere, I promise. I started volunteering in the soup kitchen. It was run by a lady called Kim, who is amazing. She's probably not watching this video, but she is amazing, trust me. She really liked making bread, and she kind of, I think, saw that I was a little bit lost and didn't know what to do, and she decided to teach me how to make bread while we were together in the kitchen working. And I learned how to do it, and I liked the aspect of the fact that I was actually achieving something. It was a tiny thing, right? Like I was making a couple of loaves. It was a tiny achievement, but I liked that I was achieving something. I remember that I didn't feel like I had achieved anything in so long that I liked that. And then she had a friend who worked in Birmingham who was looking for a young trainee baker to hire. And she was like, just do it. It's got nothing to do with your degree, but just do it. What's the worst could happen? And so I went and I moved to Birmingham and I worked there for 4 years in that bakery. It was actually, I made all kinds of bread and sourdough Chelsea buns and sweetbreads and croissants, pain au chocolat. No joke, in 2016, I was literally the best croissant maker in Birmingham. Like I just was. I was super good at it. Um, and and yeah, it was going super well. And we actually had two shop fronts. We had a shop on the left, which obviously we sold stuff that we were making, and then we had a cookery school on the right where we taught, classes of adults how to do all these things: make bread, make pastry, make pasta from scratch. And a couple of years into my career there, I sort of suddenly became the most senior baker in the establishment. So it was put on to me to teach these courses to adults, which was fantastic in the end because it grew my confidence an enormous amount. When people said that they thought that I was good at teaching, and that they had really enjoyed the day's course, we would teach them 9 to 5, and they seemed to really enjoy themselves, and it did a lot for me, and it really raised my confidence and allowed me to start thinking about again what it is that I actually wanted to do. And I thought about going into a cookery school teaching full time rather than just part time. I was just teaching a couple of days a week and working in the shop and the bakery the rest of the time. And then I thought, well, I have a maths degree that's just sitting around. Why don't I try and teach maths instead? That's probably better for the world if I taught maths. It's quite important to people. So maybe I should think about teaching maths. And because my entire experience of teaching up to that point had been teaching adults, I initially was very attracted to just things where I would teach maths to adults. So, for example, there were a couple of really interesting jobs going. There was one going around a few different prisons, teaching people spending time in there, getting them, a GCSE in maths so that when they were released, they would have, more opportunities outside. That seemed really cool. There was a job working for the army, teaching servicemen math skills so that they could promote themselves up and work in different fields. That was also really cool. And then my mum and my dad were both school teachers. And my dad took me to the side and was like, yeah, that all sounds great. You should totally go ahead and try and do that. But what you should do first is you should get a PGCE. You should train to teach kids in a classroom. And I was like, why would I do that? I'm going to hate that. That sounds horrific. And he was like, yeah, but it's only a year. And if you get this teaching qualification, you'll be paid much more to do all this adult education that you want to do. And also, you might not hate it. And if you don't hate it, then you could just be a school teacher and that would pay more and you might enjoy it even, you know. And I didn't think there was any chance of that happening. But here we are. This is my 6th year of teaching in schools to kids, and if I don't say so myself, it's going pretty well. So to answer your question, I it changed a lot over time. It was not a straight road to get here. It changed a lot. And I'll end this story of my life segment by saying that I fully expect it to continue changing. I don't expect to retire a school teacher. I fully expect, I don't know when or I don't know how, but I fully expect some way down the line, something is going to pique my interest, maybe tangentially related to teaching. Something is going to pique my interest, and I'm going to be like, oh, actually, maybe I should start doing that. And I'll have a complete career change again and go do something else. And if I've learned anything from this whole journey, it's that I think I've finally come to the conclusion that I'm pretty capable of doing whatever I want. And so I think I'm pretty open to the idea that I could just go do something else and I'll be really good at that too. And I look forward to whatever that thing might be. Okay, so hopefully I answered that question. This is the same person. Matt's account has asked another question, but this isn't a question, so I can ignore it. Fantastic. This person also hasn't answered a question, so that's fantastic. The average savage 0723 has asked me which is better between those two things. I much prefer AQA level 2 further maths. I think it does everything right, almost everything right. There's only a very few minor changes I would make to it. The questions are fantastic. There's such lovely questions in there. They do a really good job of writing them. The content is fantastic. Only a couple of changes I would make to that. And yeah, so I just really like it as a course. I think way more people should do it. OCR, FSNQ doesn't do anything necessarily wrong. Well, maybe it does. It has a bit of applied maths in there, which is completely pointless. Aside from that, it doesn't do very much wrong. But I just think AQA Level 2 is just a fantastic course. So I think way more people should do it, and I think it's just great. Anyway, is this a question? Yes, it is. Tanji Zanji asks opinions on Tamura versus Matt versus Step. Okay, so Tamura and Matt are just very similar, right? There's almost no difference between them. I like that Tamura has some mathematical logic in it. I think that's very good. And I like that Matt has some longer form questions in it. I think that's very good as well. But they're both very similar. They test doing questions under time pressure, being very accurate with your work, having to think on your feet very fast. And I think that's all really great. Step is a completely different beast, as we all know. STEP tests a completely different skill. Throughout all of your mathematics career in GCSE and A level and in Tamura and Math, you're under time pressure, right? If you don't know how to do a question, you kind of just have to move on. Because if you don't, you're not going to do the other questions which are important. STEP is not that. STEP, the whole point of STEP is to look at a, because nobody knows how to do STEP questions straight away. The whole point of STEP is to look at a question, not know how to do it, and then be given so much time that you're forced to power through it and figure it out, right? That's the whole point, which you've never really done before. And that means it's testing a whole different skill set, right? And it's developing a whole different skill set of that resilience and that ability to just plow through and figure something out after a lot of time about thinking about it. And also, of course, STEP questions look and feel much like university level questions, which is why everybody or lots of people who are doing a maths degree, maybe the year after, should think about doing STEP questions during year 13, even if they're not taking the STEP, because it's just good practice for what university math questions look like. And it practices the idea that I just said about plowing through questions that you don't know how to do. Pastafarian1692 asked about whether I wanted to be a maths teacher when I was younger. I feel like I answered that question. So if you don't think I did, sorry, but I think I spent enough time on this, really. So I'm going to move on. For Iden.R says, what A levels did you study? Maths, further maths, physics, and chemistry, and I went to Durham. Juice3245 says, hi, you're a huge help for math. Sorry, that's not a question, so I'm going to ignore it. Still not. Okay. What would you ever get into teaching? I am a teacher. What is your favorite place in the world you have ever traveled to? Probably my bedroom, and I get to do it every day, which is fantastic. What is your job? I am a teacher. Any advice for a student who is undergoing maths degree? Now, as I previously mentioned, I was not a good university maths undergraduate. Um, so I don't feel comfortable giving advice to other university maths undergraduates because I was a poor example of one. So apologies for that. Please ask someone else. Any general advice to young people? I do have advice, and I'm honored to think that you would actually be interested in the advice that I have. So I'll try and give maybe my singular best piece of advice. There's loads of things that I could say to you, right? Um, but unfortunately, what I'm going to say is something very cliched that you've probably heard from loads of people before. And that thing is that talent only gets you so far. I know you've heard it, but really, talent only gets you so far. You need to put in work, work ethic, practice. You need to have resilience. You need to ask people for help. You need to do all of those things. And I'll try and quickly explain why. Um, you've got to imagine that you're a fish, right? And the talent that you're born with is just the size of you as a fish at the start. Um, Now, if you've got a lot of talent, you're a big fish at the start. Then you get placed in a pond. All life is just being put in a series and series of bigger and bigger ponds, right? And so, if you've got a lot of talent, you're going to be put in a pond, and you're bigger than all the other fish. So you get put in a different pond, except all the other fish are slightly bigger than they were before. But sure, if you've got lots of talent, you'll be put in the pond after that. But eventually, there's going to get to a point where you're going to be put in a pond where every other fish is either your size or bigger than you, right? And so the only way to keep advancing to the next pond and the pond after that and the pond after that is through work ethic, and through asking for help and through resilience. It's through growing your size through that work, right? You need to continuously be better, strive to be better, yearn to improve, because otherwise you're going to be trapped in a pond where everybody else is bigger than you. Maybe those other people didn't have as much talent as you. Maybe they were smaller to start with, but they grew themselves until they are now bigger, and you're trapped in a pond with them, and you're going to lose whatever fight that it is you're going to have. And that's essentially all that life is. So please do not, and I know it's so easy at school, because at school you're in a very small pond. You're in classes of 30. It's not that hard. to be the best in your class, right? Because there's only 30 other people. But sooner or later, you're going to move to a bigger pond, like university. And if you haven't developed the skill of growing yourself, of being better, then you're going to suddenly find yourself in a pond where everybody else is bigger than you. And that's not a good place to be unless you yourself have the ability to match them and to improve yourself. So that would be maybe the singular thing that I would say. SoneX1 underscore. Hey Drew, are you single? This is the most liked comment of all the questions, and can I just say, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed in every single one of you. And so I will be moving on, and we'll get to is this a question? Yes, it is. Positronymics asks, will you ever do math speedrun challenge? It sounds really interesting, honestly. I would quite like to do that. It sounds fun and it sounds like a nice challenge. I haven't got around to it. I can't promise that I ever will get around to it, but it does sound fun. So the answer is maybe. Saths actually asks them. I know it hasn't got any likes, so apologies to you, but he or she does ask the most interesting question here, which is how do you get better at problem solving? Now, this is an incredible mathematical pedagogical problem. Like I said before, I'm very passionate about education. My brother and his girlfriend think I'm absolutely insane because I like to go for very long walks, maybe 2 hours, maybe even more, multiple times a week. And during those walks, I don't take anything. I don't take a wallet. I don't take my phone. I don't take any headphones. I just walk. And the reason that I am able to do that is because I'm just walking along, thinking about my job, thinking about how I could do the next thing better, thinking about how I'm going to teach the thing that I'm going to teach. And of course, this question of how do I get my students to be better at problem solving is something I've ruminated on for many hours and rethought and refigured upon reading material that other people have written or published and through experience in the classroom, constantly changing my view on it. I think I've come fairly hard onto one particular answer to this. And my answer to this is you ignore problem solving almost entirely. And that sounds really weird, but you've actually pretty much got it here on the next thing you said. Do you just do lots of practice on things in the spec? Yes. Yes, you do. And the classes that I teach in real life will be agreeing with what I'm about to say, but I force the kids that I teach to do hundreds and hundreds of rote questions. They have to do so many of them over and over again. They have to just do every single start to a lesson, they have to do questions. Every single end of a lesson, they have to do questions. In preps, they just have to do multiple questions, homeworks. I mean, homeworks, we call them preps. I don't know why. They have to just do question after question after question. And the reason that they have to do that is because I've come to believe that the best way to be good at problem solving is okay. So all problem solving is you get given a problem and you have to figure out how to combine all of the mathematical techniques and knowledge you have in the correct order, applied in the correct way, in order to be brought together to solve the problem. That's all it is. And if 80% of your brain is having to think about pulling off those procedures because you're not automatic at them, then only 20% of your brain is focusing on the wider problem of doing the problem solving, as I just said. So if you can do so many questions that you can do all the techniques whilst being completely brain dead, whilst having two hands tied behind your back, whilst being in the back of a 4x4 that's careering along a road at 100 miles an hour with hundreds of potholes in it, if you can still do your techniques under those conditions, then you're going to be pretty good at problem solving because you've just demonstrated that pretty much 0% of your brain needs to think about the problems and you can instead dedicate it to thinking about the problem. And I'm 100% on this board. And there was a question earlier, wasn't there, about how to prepare for Tamur? And I don't think I've ever said this in videos before, and I should have, but I would not discount just getting out a textbook and just, drilling 100 questions in a row, even if they're easy. You want to get yourself to the point where 0% of your brain has to think about what you're doing so that it can entirely think about the problem that you're trying to solve. And I think that's how problem solving works. You can, hopefully my passion for education is coming out here because I've spent so long on such a question that nobody wanted answered aside from Sats. But I respect you, Sats, and I'm going to answer your question fully. And I'm going to completely career along answering this question even further. Ofsted inspects schools. And according to Ofsted's framework for maths inspections, a maths lesson should have some instruction, it should have some practice, and it should have some problem solving. Every maths lesson should have some problem solving, apparently, according to Ofsted. And it's super, super frustrating because I fully believe that that is not a good criterion to judge a maths lesson, right? My kids could spend the entire maths lesson drilling questions. They could spend the entire next maths lesson drilling questions, drilling just the basics, the fundamentals. And if it takes 4 maths lessons of drilling, followed by a final fifth one of doing some problem solving, which they can actually do because they're automatic at the basics, at the fundamentals, then that is a successful week of lessons for me, right? If you're doing some teaching, 10 minutes of practice, and then problem solving, how do you expect anyone to be good at that problem solving? Because they're not automatic at the skills. Their brain is still thinking about the skills. They can't possibly ace that problem solving. And so it really frustrates me. It's like, imagine if the Timur test suddenly turned around and said, okay, actually, the best scores aren't going to Cambridge. The people who wrote their signature in the most aesthetically pleasing way on the front of the paper, they're the ones we want. Like, it's just frustrating when the criterion are just completely wrong. And yeah, maths teacher rant. Perfect. Done. Anyway, I think I answered that question. Mohammed Awan, I2T, do you think there should be a non-calculator paper? I'm going to make a video on this. I've been thinking about making a video on this for so long. But it's worth making a video on because I do feel quite strongly about this. The short answer is A-level maths should have a non-calc paper. One of the pures should be non-calc. Further maths, I don't care. You could do it or you couldn't. It doesn't matter. And I will explain my reasoning of that in a video that I will make. I promise. I promise to make it. Okay, I promise. Anyway, AML underscore 07 says, that's not a question. Oh, no, it is. What's your favorite memory from when you were a child? I don't remember anything from before I was like 12. Not a joke. I genuinely don't. I don't know whether anyone else is like that, but I'm going to have to move on because I don't. What's the best flavor of ice cream? Salted caramel. Walker's Crisps prawn cocktail. I don't really eat cake very much. Integration, you've only given me 3 nonsense ways to integrate to choose from. Obviously, the answer between those 3 is smarts, and I don't drink Coke or Pepsi because I don't like them. You won't answer this. Don't presume to know what I will and won't do. Yeah. Croc, is that a question? No, it's not. Ignored. That's not a question either. That's not a question either. This is fantastic. That's not a question. Amazing. Tivix Ossity asks, thoughts on the state of mathematics and scores in your opinion? Lol, say whatever you like. Thank you for the permission to say whatever I like. I think it's pretty bad. I think it's pretty bad. Yeah, that's about it. As someone, yeah, I I don't think there's much reason for me to go into too many specifics there, um, but I am disappointed in the state of it for many reasons, many reasons, and uh, and I hope that my small contribution to it at least makes it a little bit better. But yeah. Pythonian9977 says, what degree did you do? Maths, I mentioned that earlier. Furious8529 says, do you think if someone gets a low score, they will definitely, I presume you're talking about Tamura here, definitely not going to university. Well, I mean, if it's a university that cares about Tamura, then maybe, not definitely not, but maybe. And if it's a university that doesn't care about Tamura, then it doesn't matter. I think that's all I have to say there. Another question, oh, when will I do the 2024 papers? Not for a long time. So you're going to be disappointed about that. And then, oh, this is the end. Fantastic. Page-EZ5GT. Hi, hope to meet you one day. I mean, listen, it's probably not a good idea to meet an obsessed internet stalker. So I'm going to have to decline you on that one. I'm sure we'd have a lot to talk about. I really don't think we would. I'm a very boring person in real life. Please don't try and find me. Question 1, what was your favorite? I will answer your questions regardless because I promised to. What is your favorite Taylor Swift album? Speak Now, obviously. What is your favorite TV show? Merlin, Timeless. Obviously, classic. What is your favorite video you've ever made? It's got to be one of the two that has John Winfield in it because he's incredible. Who is your favorite contemporary mathematician? We've already answered this. I don't care about contemporary maths or contemporary mathematicians. So, does three blue, one brown count? I'll say him if he does. Do you think Bridget Mendler could beat Elon Musk in a fight? Okay, so if Bridget has proved anything in her life, it's that she is capable of absolutely anything. So, of course, she could beat Elon Musk in a fight. If you're watching this and you don't know who Bridget is, you should look her up because she's amazing. And then, I mean, so you presume, so you've answered six questions. You thought you had the right to ask six questions. Will you ever do more videos with your face? I just did. I just did. So joke's on you. Thank you so much for all the questions, and thank you so much for watching the channel. I hope to see you again in the next video.